what I'm going to talk about in this video today is dating, more specifically the first date. I'm not going to go on to like a 5-10 year relationship because that would be a whole other thing that we would have to talk about. So I'm going to assume for this video that you guys already have somebody you're interested in that you've asked on a date. Well, the first step is you kind of have to plan the date. Seems pretty obvious, right? You want to think about, when do you feel the best? Your energy level or how you come off will be different depending on what that time is. If you're a morning person and then you decide to go to some nightclub and it's 11 o'clock at night, you're probably not gonna have a good date. But think about the time when you are most energized, when you're feeling your best. You probably won't know enough about your date to really know when they fit best, but if you do, try to incorporate that. The next thing is you want to think about places that are fun or interesting. Something that's not just you sitting there boring, like having a coffee and staring across each other and just being like sipping your coffee and going like, well, what do you do? Try to do something interesting. It's okay if you want to go and grab a coffee, but maybe get a coffee and then do something. Even if it's just going for a walk. I mean, that's better than just sitting across from each other and be just going back and forth. Maybe think of something like mini golf, mini putt, bowling, art gallery. You can do kayaking, something active. Maybe like axe throwing. I know people really like that. Or it could be like a local music venue, like a local cafe has a little music venue on. Maybe you could do something first and then go afterwards to the little music venue. While you're thinking about this, keep in mind like the interest of yourself and the person you're going on a date with. If you know that the person you're going on a date with is maybe planning a trip to Mexico, you might think to yourself, what are things in Mexico that I could recreate here in some fashion? You might think of salsa dancing. You might think of a Mexican restaurant. You might think of maracas, a Moroccan band. Moroccan band? That's not even the right word. Think about something like that, right? You can include it into the date or make that the feature of the date. And the great thing about this, when you actually go there, you can be like, oh, hey, I thought we would it'd be really cool if we could go to this spot because I read from your profile or you mentioned you wanted to go to Mexico. And I just thought this would be like a cool experience. It's going to show that you're so thoughtful and that you actually paid attention to the details. Try to find out the location of where your date is located and where you're located and pick somewhere kind of in the middle or maybe a bit closer to them. That way they're not driving or taking the bus or whatever they're doing to get to you. They're not going all this extra distance. So now you've planned the location of your date. You've communicated that to the person you're going on a date with. Now the next thing is your mindset. If you are not in a good mindset when you go on the date, it's going to be crappy. It's going to suck automatically. It's going to just suck because you will not be in a good space, and that's going to come off in your energy and what you're giving in the date. So what I recommend is that before you do your date, do something that you enjoy, something that you like, something that pumps you up. Whenever I would go on a date, I would always listen. I love listening to loud music and I sing along and I dance and I just get all into it and it like pumps me up. And then I get like in a good mindset. But do what works for you. Maybe that's not what works for you. Maybe something else works for you better. Maybe you, went for a jog before you got ready or whatever it happens to be. I mean, I'm giving things that are active, but maybe that's not you. Maybe reading your D&D manual was more... Okay, not your manual. Your D&D character sheet was more inspiring to you. Okay, the next thing now, when you're going on this date, remember that this is not, I repeat, not an interview. You shouldn't have a list of questions that you're sitting there like, what's your 5-year plan and where do you see yourself and what is your relationship like with your parents and how many exes have you had and how many kids do you want? Like, don't ask this. This is too much now. This is not the focus of your date. Remember, the purpose of a first date, to have fun, feel the person, be in the moment. The purpose of a first date is not to just go blah, 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 blah. That's not what you're doing. It's like going to the office and being in an interview, right? Like you're sitting down, they're looking over your resume and, oh, you worked at IBM. Well, how was that? How come they let you go? How come your last relationship didn't work? Like, seriously? Okay, you're in the date. Focus on the date experience. Be in the moment. Be present. Let go. Have fun. Be silly. Try things. It doesn't have to be like this serious thing where like, oh my God, I have to be perfect, and if I'm not perfect, they're gonna be like, what the hell? Oh my God, he tried to make this joke and it just like totally bombed. It's like, oh my God. Would you judge somebody when they make a bad joke? Like, oh my God, oh, they made this bad joke, they're a shitty person, or I don't like them? No. Or they ate sloppily and they got, spaghetti sauce on their face? No. You shouldn't do that. If you are doing that, yeah, you shouldn't do that. So you shouldn't judge them that way because they shouldn't be judging you that way. And if they are, for whatever reason, judging you that way, fine. That's fine. Do you really want to be with a person like that anyways? That's the type of person who has a list of pet peeves that it's like 25 pages long, and they're like, he wore shoes that were brown and he had black pants. He wore white socks. Oh my God, I saw he has a tooth that's slightly crooked. Or like, it'd just be like this whole thing. Or when he talked with his mouth full. Any one of those things out of the 25 pages, and they'd be like, I'm done. He did this. Wow. At one point, he was eating his meal, and he looked up at me like this with a spoon in his mouth, and I was like, no. It's like, no. Don't do that to somebody, and if they do that to you, you're better off. Don't even worry about it, okay? Just don't even worry about it. You're fine. That person is going to be lonely for a long time because people are not perfect and we all do things that are a little silly and a little weird, and that's okay. That is okay. Just imagine you're on a date with a woman. You get pasta sauce on your face. And instead of commenting some weirdness about it, she's like, oh, and she takes her napkin and wipes your face. Are you kidding me right now? That is so flirty. That was an opportunity. Instead of being like, oh my God, he had pasta sauce on his face and blah. It's like, take the opportunity. So when you're on this date, try to talk to them like they're a friend that you've known for a while. Share with them things that are personal or intimate to you. Maybe you can tell them about a trip that you're planning or a new band that's coming to town. It's something that you might talk to a friend about, or I don't know, some new board game that you're really interested in playing. It's like those kinds of things will show sort of your passion and your interest, and they'll come out naturally. Instead of starting with like boring questions like, how was your day, or how are you feeling, or how was work? Remember to always let them talk. I mean, it's great for us to share, and because we obviously want to share with this person and show them what we're like, but also make sure to let them talk. This isn't a time for you just to be talking all the time and share, and they don't get a word in. Make sure to give them ample time to be able to ask their own questions or bring up their own things. And if they don't, you can ask questions about them, which might bring that in. Maybe you can ask them like one of those silly questions, like if you were on a desert island, what are the 3 things that you bring with you? When they're talking, make sure that you follow up with some questions about what they're talking about. Show interest. Be a good conversationalist. Don't just sit there and when they're saying something, they're like, hey, yeah, I'm going on this trip to Mexico in 2 months. And you're like, oh, I went to Mexico, blah, blah, blah. No, that's shifting the focus to you. Don't do that. Ask them more things about their trip. Oh, where are you going? Oh, who are you going with? How long will you be there? One of the most annoying things is when you're sharing something and then somebody else just shifts it and they're like, oh yeah, I went to Japan too, and blah, and they just go off and you're just sitting there like, really? So annoying. It actually, if you were to imagine the 2 people constantly doing that to each other in a conversation, you share something, then they redirect to them and share something off of what you said, and then you redirect off of their thing and share something what you said. It basically feels like you're not listening to them at all. Like you don't give a shit about what they're saying other than to get in your thing. If possible on the date, don't sit across from each other. Try to sit like side by side or stand side to side or walk side to side if you're doing something active, etc. If you have ever tried this, there's just something that's more calming and relaxing about it. It's something that's more intense when you're like staring at directly at somebody. Next, for the love of God, do not take your phone out. Never.
Never.
Leave your phone away. Put it on silent. If you take your phone out, it breaks everything down. It breaks the connection. It breaks the ambiance. It breaks the whole thing. Just don't do it. Don't ever touch it. Put it on silent. Turn the goddamn thing off. You know what? Leave it in your car. Just leave it in your car. You don't even need it with you. Okay. And the last thing, try to think about doing something special or unique at the end of the date. And the reason why I say this is because that is the last thing that they'll be left with, the last impression that they will be left with. Okay? If you think about the classic example of when the girl gets a goodnight kiss, when you drop her off or something like that, she gets the goodnight kiss, and that's the last thing she's left with. That is the thing she gushes about when she meets up with her girlfriends or texts her girlfriends later. That's what she's going to be talking about, because that is the last thing she's going to remember. And obviously make sure that if you're doing something like that, that she's actually interested in having a kiss, that you're getting the signs, okay, that she's clearly interested. And if you're not sure, you can always ask. But if you want to keep it a little lower key than this, you could try something like giving her a beautiful compliment. Saying, wow, I really enjoyed my time with you here tonight. You have such a great personality, and I love your laugh. Honestly, you made me so happy. This was a wonderful night. You could literally just say something like that and just leave it there. Or if you don't even want to do that, or maybe you want to do that something else, you could go out and get a nice dessert, or take them to a nice location where there's a good view or something like that. Something that will leave a lasting impression. So now your date is done. You've gotten back home, or you're driving home, whatever, and you're trying to think, should I see this person again? Here are 8 things that I've stolen from a book that I read a while ago. What you should do is you should focus on, how did this person make you feel? And these questions will help you to determine that. What side of me did that person bring out? What side of your personality? Were you very timid and quiet, and normally you're not? Or did they bring out your more excited and assertive side? Or how did your body feel during the date? Did you feel like you couldn't walk? You were so nervous, your legs were shaking? Did you feel comfortable? Did you feel safe? Did you feel empowered? Do you feel strong? Do you feel more energized or less energized after the date? If you feel like you're totally drained, why was that? Is there something you're more curious about and would like to get to know about them? That's a good sign. If you're thinking, oh yeah, I would like to know this and that and that. But if you're sitting there like, oh, I don't want to know anything about them, this is not interested. Did they make you laugh? Or did you make them laugh? Were you laughing? Did you feel like they heard you? They put effort in, maybe? A good example is if they plan the date, that they take into some of your thoughts and ideas into consideration, or different things that you like. Or just on the date when you were talking, were they listening, asking you questions, or were they constantly just doing the thing that I hate, or they redirect it to themselves all the time? Did you feel attractive in their presence? Did they make you feel that way? That's a good sign. If they gave you compliments, or they smiled, or they were being close to you, or touching you, did you feel captivated? Or did you feel bored? Or maybe just something in between where sometimes you felt interested, and other times you felt like not interested. Now just think about all those different things after the date. And remember that, this is a first date. People are nervous. They don't always come off the best, right? Maybe some of their jokes don't land, or they don't say the things that they want to say, or act the way that they want to say, because they're being a little awkward. And that's okay. So my policy in general would be always go on a second date, unless there's some real bad signs there. If there's some real bad signs and you think they're an axe murderer, well, maybe don't go on a second date because you don't want to get murdered. But in general, go on a second date, because you never know what that person was going through that day and how they felt and how, nervous they were. And be charitable in your assessment of them. Don't go down this list of 25, 50 things and be like, oh my God, they have this one pet peeve and I'm not going to go see them again because their tooth was crooked or whatever, or they have big ears. That is going to keep you single. Now, if they had a deal breaker that was big, like they have 5 kids and you don't want any kids, or they're a smoker and they're not willing to quit, they're moving to Europe in 2 months and you're not going to do that, well, then probably don't go on a date with them, right? It doesn't make sense. But barring these type of deal breaker things, you should go on a second date. Pet peeves, everybody has them. It's okay. You can work through them. And finally, a lot of people are obsessed with this idea of the spark. They want this chemistry or instant chemistry thing to happen, and it's totally baloney, okay? People who make you feel like you have a spark or there's chemistry right away or whatever, those type of people are generally very charismatic, they're very charming, and they generally make everybody feel that way. They are great at making people feel special, making the chemistry feel so great, okay? They do that to everybody. So if you experience that with that partner, you're not the only one. Everybody else they date probably feels the same. You should definitely see a person again, even if you don't feel the chemistry or the spark right away. People are nervous, and also some people just take a longer time. They're like a slow burn to build up and get to that place, or get to the place where you feel connection. I mean, just think about shy people. You're on a date with somebody shy. So automatically, because they're shy, they're obviously not going to be giving you that spark and that charmingness, right? So should shy people never be allowed to have relationships? No, of course not. For God's sake, don't be like, oh my God, I kissed him when there was no sparks. All right, guys, I will leave it there. Please let me know what you think. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you again on the next one.